Welcome, my name is Grandma Storm. I write stories for young adults. Today I am reading chapters 46 through the end in my book, 146 BC. Chapter 46. Torn and Ruth lowered the body of Mara into a shallow depression on the rocky shore. Ruth thought back to the time she helped bury another of the House of Senatus. That beach was wet and sandy. This was hard, dry, and rocky. When the body was covered with gravel and sealed with stone, Naomi repeated the prayer of the dead, placed a rock at the head, turned, and walked away. "We must return to the ship before the inhabitants of this land discover us," said Naomi. "Torn, you have done well. Get us to our villa near Imperies, and I will stand by our agreement." "You know," asserted Torn as he turned to face Naomi, "I could take what I want, whenever I want." "Yes," replied Naomi, "I know. I also know you honor your word, as I honor mine. Hercules told me the story of your brother. I know you despise treachery." Torn remembered Flegar and nodded. For the rest of the journey, they hugged the land, making their way north along the Iberian coast. When they came to a port, Torn and Hercules would negotiate sales of the dead captain's oil, buy supplies, and inquire how many days' sail until they reach Imperies. As Torn dug through the hold, he discovered bundles of ivory and 3 chests of gold. Naomi was told and rejoiced in the unexpected riches. They also inquired about Rome. Local chieftains thought little of Rome. They mocked the very idea of Rome as a danger to them. On the way back to the ship, Torn said to Hercules, "These fools would do well to pay attention to Rome." "Yes, my friend, and to misquote an old Greek, just because you do not take an interest in Rome doesn't mean that Rome won't take an interest in you." "Where wolf's ears are, wolf's teeth are near," added Torn. "Ah, clever! Who said that?" "An old man of the north." Hercules smiled. "Ah, wisdom of the old is universal." For the first time in her life, Deborah had a purpose. She was put in charge of the ship's stores. She became the ship's cook. With effort came strength. Each step was more stable. Her carriage was straighter. She smiled more. Naomi and Ruth became able sailors. Torn was amazed at what mere women could do. Chapter 47. The sun was warm on her back. The offshore breeze brought the sweet smell of green growing things to her senses. The little ship was sailing well. Torn had not yelled a command for a while. Ruth thought about home. She thought about Moor and Far and what they might be doing right at that moment while she, the oldest daughter of the House of Scurin, was so far away thinking of them. She did not realize it when she started to sing. She sang all her old songs. What startled her was when Torn joined in. He knew the songs of home too. She smiled. The next day, the Iberian villa of the House of Senatus was sighted. The ship made a smooth landing in the little harbor. It was not as grand as the one near Carthage, but then Carthage was no more. It was better to be far away from the doomed city. The steward was waiting for them as they landed. "My lady," began the man, "I hope you will find all as Lord Senatus ordered. We have letters from Alexandria that require your attention. The steward of Gemmarth will want to know of your safe passage across the sea. He will be awaiting your instructions." Naomi and Deborah walked together to the white villa. Hercules remained behind, directing men as they carried his precious trunks containing his scrolls. Ruth started to follow when Torn grabbed her arm. "You don't have to go," he said. "You are free." "What do you mean?" "After the fight, when you were almost killed." "I was almost killed?" "You wouldn't wake up. Deborah and Naomi were most concerned for you. Then you were with us again. Well, Naomi said, because of your bravery, you were a real Dringer. How you fought," declared Torn. Then he added, "Naomi swore she would give us this ship and a crew. We can sail for home." "Home?" "Yes, home." "Thanks be to Jehovah," sang Ruth. "Only he can undo what has been done." Chapter 48. Deborah and Ruth walked hand in hand from the villa to the waiting ship. They could hear Torn yelling orders to his crew of Iberian slaves. It had been 2 months since their passage to the new estate. In that time, plans were made, and the ship was readied for its long voyage. Now Ruth was leaving, never to return. Ruth had parted with Hercules the evening before. Since the fight on the sea crossing, the old Greek was fading. He hardly talked. He hardly ate. A slave was required to carry him as his legs were so weak. It was only when Naomi sat by him that he would smile. But she was busy running the estate and had little time for her old tutor. He knew Ruth was leaving. When she came to say goodbye, he motioned for her to sit beside him. "Sing," he whispered. "Sing for this old Greek once more the songs of the far north." Ruth took his hand and sang. He closed his eyes and leaned against the stone wall at his back. When she finished, she wondered if he was still breathing, but he opened his eyes and smiled. "I have something for you, Ruth. Here is a scroll with all the letters of the sounds of your language. I have also written your story. It fills the rest of the scroll. When you first came to me, you were an untutored child of the north named Rin. When Deborah taught you about the true God, Jehovah, she renamed you Ruth. Well, in honor of you and your names, I am calling these letters runes. When you go home, you will be able to write down tales of the far north and send them to me through Torn. Naomi plans to open trade to the north with him. That way, I can still be of use and adding to the compendium of knowledge." As the girl took the scroll from the hand of the old man, she bowed herself to the ground before him and declared, "Hercules, I honor you. I thank you for the precious gift of runes. The power of written language is a great gift. I will always remember you." Naomi and Torn did confer over trade. He told her which goods from her holdings were desired by tribes in the north. She said timber, iron, and furs would trade well in the south. The once galley slave was now master of his own ship. Thanks to Hercules, he had some skill in letters and numbers. That knowledge would serve him well in his new endeavor. "Come on, Ruth," shouted Torn. "Time to go." "I owe you so much," said Deborah to Ruth as the girls hugged in parting. "Because of you, I can walk." "No," corrected Ruth as she gave Deborah one last hug. "Jehovah meant this all to be." "I have a gift for you," said Deborah as the slave hurried toward the girls with a basket. Ruth looked in the basket to see a half-grown white kitten blinking sleepy green eyes. "Oh, she is so sweet. Thank you." "You must call her Kavara. That means friend in Hebrew. When you arrived with Barak, you were a slave. Then you became my companion, my nurse, my defender, and finally my friend. I will miss you. With all my heart, I will miss you." "I had 2 silver amulets made," continued Deborah as she held up 2 silver chains dangling pendants. "There is a blessing written on them. One side is in Hebrew The other is in runes. Hercules helped me with that. It reads, "The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance unto you and give you peace." Deborah slipped one necklace over Ruth's head. "Now you read the other blessing in runes and put it over my head," said Deborah. "When we are apart from one another, we can read the words on these amulets and remember our friendship." Ruth did so and murmured, "Thank you. It is beautiful. I can never forget you." Ruth wondered what she could give in return. Then she remembered the little silver bird on her shoulder. "I give you this," she said, as she unpinned it and handed it to Deborah. "Your brother bought it for me. It is very like the bird my brother carved on the hilt of my stone knife. In my language, bird is fugel. When you wear this, remember me." Deborah released Ruth's hand as Naomi ran to the dock. She had final instructions for Torn. Then Ruth was on the ship and out to sea. The small form of Deborah disappeared too soon. Ruth sat against the gunwale with tears in her eyes and looked at the amulet. She peered in the basket at the kitten, who wanted to get out. She let the cat out, who promptly hid behind some amphorae loaded on the deck. Deborah knew the little cat would be fine. She just needed to get her sea legs. Ruth picked up the basket. It seemed too heavy. She pulled aside the cloth the kitten had been resting on and found a bag of silver coins. Magic silver coins that could buy baskets of food. Under that was more magic, a brass mirror. Ruth looked in the mirror and smiled. Chapter 49. The winds were cold. The sky was gray. Ruth was as wrapped in wool as Hercules was on the last day she saw him. She and Torn were standing by the gunwale, scanning the shore. They were looking for landmarks that Ruth could identify as being close to her home. "You should be called Rin now," said Torn. "We are in northern waters. The old names and the old gods must be honored." "Jehovah has done what no other god could do," said Ruth as she fingered the amulet. "He has saved me through kidnapping, slavery, thieves, and storms. If he brings me to my family once more, I promise to follow him the rest of my days. Others may call me Rin, but in my heart I shall always be Ruth. What about you? Are you still bent on revenging yourself upon your brother?" Hercules and I talked for many hours on that topic. He urged me forgive, as he had his brother. He said hate would kill me, not my brother. He said Jehovah taught, "It is mine to avenge, I will repay." In due time their foot will slip, their day of disaster is near, and their doom rushes upon them. Hercules said he learned years ago that his brother died, penniless and friendless, destroyed by his constant scheming and lying. I think he is right. Fleegar will be destroyed, but it's not my place to do it. "Ah," said Ruth, "I see Jehovah and his teachings have changed your heart as well." Torn shrugged his shoulders, ran his hands through his tangled red hair, and said with a smile, "Maybe so." The next day found them again scanning the shore as they had for the last 2 weeks. Ruth was holding the white cat to warm her hands as much as for companionship. Kavara didn't mind. In fact, she was purring. "What about that inlet over there?" Torn asked as he pointed at the shore. The oaks growing along the coast looked familiar. Ruth's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? "It looks right. Take me to land." Torn left the ship in the care of the crew. Ruth took her basket, popped the cat in with her other treasures, and left the ship with Torn. The further they walked, the quicker Ruth's heart beat. That bend seemed familiar. That clump of firs was right where it should be. Torn pointed out a thin trail of smoke ascending in the sky. A settlement or a farmhouse was ahead. Ruth started running. She forgot about Torn as she ran. He watched her until she disappeared into the forest. With a sigh, he turned to walk to his ship and into his own future. Each step reaffirmed she was where she wanted to be, home. Then she was standing in the farmyard. There was the sheepfold. There was the house. More, far! Asmund! Woon! Out of the house came a sober-faced, red-headed girl, followed by an old woman. Rin? Gasped the old woman. Yes, Mor, it's me. I've come home. Thank you for listening to my book, 146 BC. I would like to share with you information about how this book came to be written. Someday, old Grandma's storm will go to heaven. I want to leave behind something for my grandchildren to encourage them to believe in God and to live an honorable life. I thought this might be best done by writing books. God inspired men of old to write. God trusts his book to teach us to have faith and to live an honorable life. That is why he gave us the scriptures. My goal is to write a book for each grandchild. Each is welcome to give me a theme and any exciting details that will inspire the story. These books will form the collection entitled The Name Series. My granddaughter Ruth loves history. She wanted her story to be about ancient Carthage. Ruth also wanted her character to be just like her, a young teen with a Scandinavian heritage. That was a puzzle for this grandma. How to transport a girl of Danish extraction from the cold waters of the North Sea to the Mediterranean port of Carthage. So I decided Ruth had to be kidnapped. But then, if you listen to this book, you know all that happened to her. Since Ruth's book is historical fiction, I needed to do research. Besides watching YouTube videos on ancient Carthage and consulting websites gleaning information from many experts, I ordered this excellent book by Robert Miles, Carthage Must Be Destroyed. It talks about the rise and fall of the ancient civilization. If you would like to learn more about this foundational and fascinating time in history, I highly recommend it. All the artwork on the cover is done by me in pencil. Ruth's wide-eye expression is based on a photograph I took of her. I added a rope and a strong hand to symbolize her experience as a slave. The drawing of the ship is to help my readers understand what warships look like during the 3 Punic Wars between Carthage and Rome. The symbol on the sail is of Tanit, the goddess of Carthage. Whether or not this was displayed on the ships is simply conjecture on my part. On the back cover is a map to help you understand the incredible journey Ruth endured. I want to thank my husband and daughter for their work publishing 146 BC on Amazon. Believe me, I could not have done this without them. I also want to thank my youngest son for creating this YouTube channel. His ability with technology is amazing. He also loaned me his authentic stone knife so that you might see this important part of Ruth's story. This is the end of 146 BC, but I don't want to leave without dedicating the book to my granddaughter and all the girls of the world named Ruth. May you live in an honorable life, trusting in God. Blessings on you all.